Hello everyone. In this video we're going to cover Elementalist leveling. Elementalists are different from every other class in the game in that they only have one weapon that they can use at a time. You don't have that other weapon that you can switch to in combat. The weapon we recommend the most for leveling is the staff, mainly because this has great distance, excellent AoE, and the most survivability out of any other weapon. There are other weapons that you may want to try out, like the daggers, but again, you are a very squishy character and you want to keep as much distance between you and the enemy as possible. Now, covering the way the weapons work for the Elementalists would be a little difficult. What we're looking at here is you have your fire attunement, your water attunement, your air attunement, and your earth attunement. Each one of these attunements has 5 skills connected with it. Fire attunement mainly focuses on damage and burning. Water focuses on more support skills and healing. Air focuses on damage and controlling abilities like blinds and dazes. And Earth focuses on survivability and damage over time. You'll probably find that in most fights you'll spend your most time in between fire and air. I don't use Earth personally that much, but there are some people who prefer it, so that's up to you how you want to play and what your play style is. Water is one of those skills that is really good for utility-based play when you're in an event, or if there's a boss and somebody needs healing, you can easily switch over to water, get some heals off with that, and then switch back to doing damage with fire or air. So keep that in mind when you're playing. You do have the utility of a healer, kind of, but you can't play it all the time like that. So you got to keep an eye out for what's going on and work around that. As for the utilities that an Elementalist is going to be using, your healing element is going to be Glyph of Elemental Harmony. What this does is it's on a 25-second cooldown. It heals you for a flat amount, and then it also gives you a boon based on your attunement. So, like it says in the tooltip, if you're attuned to fire, you gain Might, which is attack power, which increases the damage your spells do. If you're in water, you gain Regeneration, which is a little bit more healing, which is sometimes necessary. So keep that in mind. You can switch to water, pop your Glyph of Elemental Harmony, and then switch back to whatever element you were attacking with. Air grants you Swiftness, which is move speed, and Earth grants you Protection. So this is kind of like the Ranger and kind of like the Necromancer with their war horns, except you can just use the heal and get a good 13 seconds of Swiftness on a 25-second cooldown. So keep that in mind. When you're traveling somewhere, you can pop your heal over and over and over and run really quick. The basic utilities we're going to be looking at are Arcane Shield, which basically just gives you a shield that'll block 3 attacks. If it blocks all 3 attacks in 5 seconds, it explodes and does a pretty good amount of damage. Arcane Power, which makes your next 5 attacks automatically crit. And then Signet of Air, which is your base move speed increase. It gives you 10% increased move speed, 20-second cooldown active that's going to blind all the nearby enemies for 5.5 seconds, which can be a really big lifesaver sometimes, so keep that in mind. And finally, your elite skill, which is Glyph of Elementals. The way Glyph of Elementals works is based on what attunement you're in, it will summon a different type of elemental. So, like I said, if you're in fire attunement, you'll summon a fire elemental that just deals damage. If you're in water attunement, it'll summon an ice elemental that deals damage and has a chance to heal you and nearby allies. Air attunement deals damage and stuns the enemy, and earth elemental just summons a tank, the earth elemental that you fight that is hard to kill. Moving on to traits, the main focus you're going to want to put your points in is Arcana, after that Earth Magic, and after that Fire Magic. The reason we put points in Arcana is the sign of a good Elementalist is that they're constantly shifting the attunements that they're in. Arcana makes that easier and actually also gives you boons and buffs based on switching your attunements. The skills we're using for this are Arcane Retribution. When you hit 75% health, you gain Arcane Power, which is a nice double tap because you can use Arcane Power, get your 5 crits off, and then if you take a little bit of damage, you can then use Arcane Power again based on Arcane Retribution. Then we use Blasting Staff. This makes the area of attacks on the staff much larger. It basically goes from, depending on what the spell is, it more or less doubles the range of the spell. Some of them it doesn't double, it's a little bit less, but it's pretty close. The final trait point we put in is Evasive Arcana. This creates an attunement-based spell at the end of your dodge, so it's like the rogue with their caltrops when they dodge and they drop caltrops, except in this case it drops a spell based on what attunement you're in. As the tooltip says, you can see when you dodge with fire, it drops Flame Burst. Water will create a cleansing wave which heals and removes conditions, if I remember correctly. Air creates a blinding flash, which will blind all nearby enemies. And then Earth just creates Churning Earth, which is a cripple and a bleed application to all nearby enemies. It can only be used every 10 seconds, so remember that, you know, if you're dodging, you'll want to try and time it so that you only dodge every 10 seconds so you can constantly drop this. As for Earth Magic, nothing particularly great about Earth Magic. It's just to increase your condition damage and your toughness, because you are one of the squishiest classes in the game. That's why we spec into Earth Magic, because you will absolutely need it for leveling. It's very important. If you don't spec into this, you basically get crushed over and over and over, and it's very frustrating. The points we use, or the trait points we use for this, are Earth's Embrace. You gain Armor of Earth when health reaches 50%, which basically makes you invulnerable for, I think, about 5 seconds. Geomancer's Freedom. You recover from crippled, immobilized, and chilled 33% faster. This can actually be a really large lifesaver in fights with mobs that tend to CC you with those skills a lot. And the reason this is a lifesaver is because as a squishy, you have to be able to get away using your air attunement and things like that. If you're crippled or immobilized or slowed via chill, you're not going to get away. You're going to take hits and you're going to die. So that is a fantastic skill right there. And finally, Written in Stone is the last trait we use. That maintains the passive effects of signets when you activate them. The main reason for that is for Signet of Error. So when you activate Signet of Error for its blind, you still have that 10% increased movement speed, which keeps you mobile and keeps you alive. Finally, the last 10 points we put in traits are in Fire Magic. That increases your attack power, so the damage your spells do, and then also the condition durations, be it burning, bleeds, or anything like that. The trait point we put in here is Burning Precision. What it does is you have a 30% chance to cause burning on any critical hit. So when you critically hit with any of your spells, it'll cause burning on the target, which is fantastic when you're an AoE class. Dropping your, Flame Burst or the Meteors from the Sky spell, it more or less has a really good chance to apply burning to all targets. And that goes for pretty much any AoE spell you'll be casting. So when they do crit, it's even more damage done. So that's about all there is to it. The Elementalist is in a slightly uncomfortable place. It's very, very squishy. It's a little bit hard to level, but once you get going, it actually can be really fun.